There is a quiet, pervasive tragedy that shadows the most complex minds of our generation. It is not loud, not dramatic, but persistent, the suspicion that you have somehow failed before you ever truly began. You look at the world and sense that your inner clock is out of sync with everything around you. Others appear to move on a clean, linear timeline. They step smoothly into careers, families, and recognition, as if adulthood welcomed them without resistance. They knew who they were at 20, achieved it by 25, and sealed it by 30. Their lives advanced in straight lines. And then there is you. Your path has never been straight. It has curved, looped, and doubled back on itself. You have begun things with fierce intensity, only to abandon them once their meaning evaporated. You have endured long seasons that look like stagnation from the outside, years where nothing visible seemed to grow, while inwardly you were fighting private wars, dismantling entire belief systems, and questioning realities most people never pause to examine. The father of analytical psychology would not look at your timeline with alarm. He would look at it with recognition. He understood that there exists a rare type of individual whose psychological structure is so intricate, so saturated with unconscious material, that early, surface-level success is almost impossible. To the outer world, you appear to be a late bloomer, at times even a failure, but in the deeper, alchemical reality of the psyche, something entirely different is taking place. You are not failing to launch. You are undergoing a gestation period, one that is proportional to the weight of the destiny you are meant to carry. The oak tree does not grow at the speed of grass, and the reason you have not yet arrived is not because you are defective. It is because you are building a foundation. Many early achievers succeed quickly because what they are constructing is light. You, on the other hand, are preparing ground capable of holding a skyscraper rather than a tent. What looks like delay is actually structural necessity. We live in a culture that worships the archetype of the pure eterness, the eternal youth. We glorify prodigies, 30 under 30 lists, overnight billionaires. Speed has become a moral virtue, and this obsession creates a distortion that makes slow, invisible inner work feel like laziness or incompetence. But Jung offered a radical counter-narrative. He suggested that the first half of life, roughly until 35 or 40, is only a preparation, a clearing of the throat before the real speech begins. For the rare personality, the intuitive, the deep feeler, the analyst, this first half is often defined not by achievement, but by suffering. And this suffering is not accidental. It is the necessary friction that separates your true self from the persona society attempted to impose upon you. While others learned the rules of the game and played them efficiently, you were stopped by a more dangerous question. Why is the game being played at all? That need for meaning, for coherence, for truth beneath appearances, acts like a heavy brake on external progress. It slows you down. But it does so for a reason. While your peers were climbing the corporate ladder, you found yourself on the bottom rung, staring at the ladder itself and realizing it leaned against the wrong wall. You possess a differentiated consciousness that forbids mindless action. You cannot simply do. You must first understand the meaning behind the deed before committing your energy. In a world that honors swift, unthinking execution, this caution reads as hesitation, even indecision. Yet would call it a safeguard your soul, refusing to invest in a life that is not genuinely yours. The danger, of course, is that you internalize this slow burning deliberation as a defect. You measure the gap between your potential and your present and feel shame. You ask why you cannot be normal, why simple tasks exhaust you, why solitude is necessary to refill you, why an ancient weariness sits in your bones even when you have done nothing. That exhaustion is the cost of processing reality at higher resolution. You are not merely living, you are decoding. Every encounter, every headline, every subtle shift in the air is data your psyche must integrate. You carry a heavy load of consciousness, like a high-performance computer running complex simulations. Your boot-up time outstrips the pocket calculator. But once you are online, once the shadow is integrated, and you have found your stance, your processing power dwarfs those who sprinted early. Famously observed that nature commits no errors. If you are fashioned this way, nature needs you. The world is full of people who maintain the status quo, who follow instructions and keep the machine running. But when the machine fails, when old maps collapse, when a crisis of meaning seizes the collective, the early achievers falter because their identities were built on external validations that can vanish overnight. This is where you step forward. The late success of the rare personality is not a delayed copy of normal success. It is a different species of achievement success, forged by resilience in the fires of introspection and rooted in a self-knowledge that cannot be shaken because it was won alone in the dark. This phenomenon belongs to what called individuation. For most, life is imitation, copying parents, teachers, culture. For you, life has been subtraction. Your 20s and 30s along pruning, friends lost who did not understand you, jobs abandoned that suffocated you, beliefs shed that proved hollow. This subtraction is painful. It feels like backward motion. Yet in alchemy it is the nigredo, the blackening, the necessary dissolution of the false self. You had to fail at being normal so you could succeed at being yourself. Had you grabbed the corner office and the accolades at 25, you would have sealed a mask around your soul, trapped in a persona far too small for what you are meant to hold, and at 50, you might have woken to a midlife collapse that would have undone you. Your so-called failure was a protective intelligence. It kept you fluid, curious, hungry for what is real. Yet the waiting room is treacherous, rot sets in easily. The line between gestation and stagnation is razor thin, and many with your capacity fall into the provisional life, always preparing to live, never stepping into the arena. You tell yourself one day, when I am ready, when I have read enough, when I am healed enough, then I will begin. But readiness is an illusion. The move from late bloomer to awakened maker does not occur through thought alone. It requires a specific action that bridges inner and outer. Your timeline answers to the archetype of the senex, the wise old gravity that dwells in you, even as a child, an asset that in youth feels like a burden, because it makes you heavy while others skim the surface. But the treasures lie beneath the insights, the wisdom, the deep understanding of human nature you gathered while you felt left behind, assets that become priceless in the second half of life. As the world shifts into automation and artificial intelligence, the sprint and memorize skills of early achievers fade, the late bloomers' gifts, empathy, pattern recognition, synthesis, spiritual endurance, become the planet's most valuable currency. You have played a long game in a short-term world, and the market is finally turning to your favor. To capitalize, you must recognize the transition point Jung named metanoia, a turning of the mind, usually between 35 and 50, though for the rare personality it may come earlier or later, depending on the intensity of suffering, when inward energy devoted to analysis must be redirected outward. This is the chrysalis breaking. The pain you feel, the frustration of unlived potential, is not proof you missed your chance. It is the pressure of the birth canal. You are being compressed because you are too large for your current life. Your failure to fit in was the universe's way of keeping you from settling into a life far too small for what you will become. Jungiancenter.org. The primary psychological obstacle between you and your destiny is the pure eterness, the eternal child, not childishness, but an emotional refusal to touch ground, hyper-intellectually mature, yet hovering in suspended animation, terrified that committing to one path will kill off infinite possibilities. You are in love with potentiality and therefore allergic to actuality. Real life demands compromise, grit, repetition, and the ugly work of imperfection, while your mind lives in ideals. The moment you drag vision down to earth, it feels degraded. So you retreat into the clouds, where everything remains pristine, because nothing has been tried. This is the provisional life. You tell yourself you are only waiting for the right moment, the right partner, the right opportunity, until the terrifying thought takes root that life is passing you by while you analyze it. This is the crisis point where the psychological elite often break. Potential unfulfilled presses like a physical weight in the chest, and you begin to envy the normal, because at least they are in the arena while you remain in the stands. The cure is not to grow dull and compliant, but to do the work, dirty, hand-bloodying work of dragging intuition from the heavens into matter. That is why many of you suddenly feel a violent urge to build, to write, to create, even to train the body. Your soul is starving for friction. It wants the earth. And crucially, you cannot do this alone. The isolation that protected you in youth becomes a prison in adulthood. You need others, not a herd, but a pack. Spoke of an aristocracy of the spirit, a silent network awake to deeper realities. If you have been nodding along, feeling seen for the first time in years, you are likely part of this dispersed tribe. We are gathering those scattered minds right here. If you want to ensure you don't drift back into the unconsciousness of the daily grind, if you want to keep as a lighthouse in your feed, make the commitment to subscribe now. It is a small gesture, but a signal to your own psyche that you are choosing truth over noise. We are sketching the map you have been searching for, and we need you to help us read it. Once you commit to the descent, landing your plane on the rough terrain of reality, you unlock the late bloomer's most potent weapon, the shadow. For the first half of your life, you were likely a good soul, empathetic, sensitive, eager to please, so you repressed your ambition, your aggression, your appetite for power, because you associated those forces with corrupt authorities and vowed to be harmless. Yet warns us, you do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. To succeed later, you must integrate your shadow, reclaim the parts you discarded. The ambition you called greed is the fuel you need to build. The anger you feared is the boundary-setting energy that will stop others from exploiting you. The late bloomer triumphs because they stop apologizing for their power. Where a 20-year-old with power is often dangerous from untempered ego, you, after decades of mastering empathy and learning suffering, can be trusted with it. When you finally tap that reservoir of drive, you will not become a tyrant, but a force of nature, moving with a precision and authority early achievers cannot match, because their power springs from ego, while yours rises from the whole of you. This integrated shadow gives late success its particular tone, not frantic, not desperate, but formidable. Have you noticed how some older actors, writers, leaders carry a heavy, gravitational presence? That is integrated shadow. They do not seek to impress, they simply occupy their space. That hesitation of youth was intuition telling you, you were not yet ready for this voltage. Had you succeeded at 20, your ego would have swelled and you would have been ruined by applause. Now you do not need applause, you need the work, an internal imperative, a duty to the talent entrusted to you. Society calls the midlife shift a crisis, when someone quits the safe job, ends the dead marriage, or finally begins the book they promised for a decade, corrects this. No, they are not breaking down, they are breaking through. The walls of the persona are cracking not to punish you, but to make way for the self to emerge. Late success is nearly always announced by a season of chaos. So, if your life feels like it is falling apart, take heart, this is the alchemical fire. The structure collapsing was always too small for you. You are not dying, you are shedding. Consider the bamboo, 5 years of invisible root work, a tiny shoot above soil that makes the outside world call it dead. And then, in a single season, it explodes 80 feet in 6 weeks. Did it grow in 6 weeks or 5 years? You are the bamboo. The silence of your last decade was not emptiness but pregnancy. While others grew leaves, you grew roots. And when you finally rise, you will not be toppled by the first wind. Early achievers often have shallow roots. A single crisis of reputation or finance can destroy them, but you have already survived the crisis of meaning. In the dark, you are anti-fragile. This is the unique advantage of life's afternoon. Divided life into morning youth expansion and ego building, and afternoon maturity soul making. Culture belongs to the morning, loud, bright, frantic. But the treasure belongs to the afternoon. Second half success is sweeter because it is not chased, it is attracted. You stop chasing what runs from you and become the person who naturally draws what belongs to them. Desperation fades as you realize you have already survived your worst days, you have faced the void and lived what is left to fear. That lack of fear becomes magnetic, drawing opportunities, resources, and people to you like a beacon. The most profound gift of late success is synthesis, the patchwork of your life, bits of psychology, a stray design skill, a knowledge of history, an odd mechanical curiosity was never scatter, it was constellating. Would say you have been gathering ingredients for a recipe no one else has cooked. Early achievers specialize, the late bloomer integrates. When your moment arrives, it does not look like a linear promotion, but a sudden geometric alignment of everything you have ever learned. All the wasted time, all the abandoned hobbies, all the painful detours suddenly lock into place to form a singular, unique competence the world has never seen. You realize you needed the depression to understand depth, the isolation to develop vision, the technical skills to build the container. This is your magnum opus, not merely a career, but the complete expression of your soul's code. And because it is forged from such diverse, authentic materials, it cannot be copied. You become a category of one in a world of commodities. This is the moment Jung called synchronicity begins to flood your life, meaningful coincidences without causal ties, yet threaded with purpose. When your inner truth finally matches your outer action, the universe stops resisting and begins conspiring. The right person at a coffee shop, a book falling from a shelf that answers a decade's question, opportunities appearing as if out of thin air, not because you forced them, but because you now vibrate at the frequency of your destiny. You are no longer swimming upstream, you are the river. The struggle of the first half was resistance, the success of the second half is the power of flow. Yet this road is not for the faint of heart. You walked the desert, while others slept in comfortable houses, bore the outcast's label, and clung to a vision no one else could see. There is a reason you carried that burden. You are likely the cycle breaker of your lineage. Believed we carry unresolved psychology from our ancestors. The late bloomer often metabolizes the trauma, fear, and limits of their family line. You could not succeed early because you were doing the heavy psychic lifting for your bloodline. Now the cleaning is done and the road is clear. You are free to run, and when you run for all of them. Your success will vindicate your suffering and prove the long dark road was leading somewhere all along. You will stand as living proof that it is never too late to become who you might have been. But remain vigilant. The old habits of the waiting room are sticky. The addiction to passivity, to analyzing rather than doing, will try to pull you back. Protect your momentum with everything you have. No more energy wasted on relationships that drain you, habits that numb you, or information that distracts you. Your energy is now the most precious currency on earth, and you must learn to seal the leaks in your vessel. If toxic people still drain you, or others' emotions exhaust you, it means your boundaries remain porous. We have produced a focused analysis showing how to identify and neutralize these drains for empaths and intuitive like you. It should appear on your screen shortly, a practical manual to guard the fire you have painstakingly kindled. So as you face the years ahead, don't look back with regret. Don't envy the sprinters who peaked in high school or the ones who found the easy path. They have their reward. You have something else: the depth of the ocean, the resilience of ancient redwoods, a mind honed on the whetstone of silence. Your time was never then. Your time is now. The curtain is rising, the audience is waiting.